The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Thanks for joining us. Depending on where you are in the world, that'll sound just about right. We're going to get going here in about 2 minutes. Thanks for joining us early and getting settled in. For those of you who don't mind, use the chat room to let me know, let me and Jim know where you're dialing in today from. That'd be great. We've been getting a lot of activity internationally for these events. Love to kind of see who the farthest person is away. Of course, a lot of activity here in the States too. So farthest away from Cleveland might get some street cred also. So I'm here at the headquarters in Cleveland. Jim is working remotely out of Cincinnati today, right? Is that where you are today, Jim?
That's right. I'm at the opposite corner of the state down here in Cincinnati.
Yes, but I assume we're still sharing the same weather patterns, gray and cold, but not raining at least.
Nope, just gray gloom. They said on the weather this morning, don't expect to see the sun this week. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
So you got that going for you.
Typical Ohio winter.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we've got another Ohio person here. We got Dublin on. We've got Chicago. We've got San Francisco, Philadelphia. Thanks, guys. Boston is in. We got South Florida, Oklahoma. Welcome. We got the UK represented with our partners, Open Reality over there. We've got Net Peppers in Germany. Thanks for joining us, gang. Oh, we got our new group. We've got a Russian distribution partner, Comtech. Welcome. Montreal on, Texas, North Dakota. Great. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for letting us know where you're dialing in from. It's always fun to see. So who wins the prize then? So let's see. Santa Cruz. So San Francisco, Santa Cruz, probably the farthest from Cleveland, and I guess Moscow gets the prize for farthest away. Wouldn't you say, Jim?
Yep, I think your geography skills are sharp today. I think you got it.
I'm on it, man. I am telling you. So, all right, folks, let's get going. You've got a great topic ahead of you today. If I do say so myself, really, I'll just be sitting here in the background. It's really Jim's topic. Jim, welcome, of course. Thanks for joining us today.
Yep, good to be here. Thanks, Don.
Wireless connectivity 101, wireless device connectivity 101. This is a great topic for us for a lot of reasons. One is there's always finger pointing, it seems, with the device teams, the support teams, and the Wi-Fi teams, or the network teams. And so, Wi-Fi often takes the blame, rightly or wrongly. But there are tools out there and research and things that you can do to figure out where the issues come in. And really, obviously, we're all on the same team here, right? Everyone wants optimized devices, and whether you're in healthcare or manufacturing or retail, the IoT is dependent on the Wi-Fi, and we all want the same thing. We all want good performing devices. So with that said, Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and maybe why these folks should be listening to you.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Don. So I am the Director of Global Wi-Fi Solutions here at Seven Signal. I manage our team of sales engineers. I'm a CWNE and CCNP wireless, which is going to be something else next month, I think. But I'm mostly a Cisco guy.
Oh, I thought you were getting a new certification. Okay.
Cisco has done a major overhaul of their certification programs.
Oh.
So I will be like a CCNP enterprise with a couple wireless specialties or something.
Oh,
it gives, yeah, my signature is going to be huge all of a sudden in my email.
We're going to have to give you a new title too, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And so, yeah, I'm a wireless network engineer by trade. My most recent experience before Seven Signal was in the healthcare industry, but I've worked in other verticals too. I've done K-12, higher ed, nonprofit. I've worked for MSPs and other stuff. So pretty broad range. And even though I've done mostly Cisco in my professional career, I've used the other vendors as well. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Jim Vada. And there's my blog there, framebyframewifi.net, which is sorely in need of an update, but I've got some ideas. So hopefully I'll have a blog post out in the next few months. But yeah, that's me.
Right on. Thanks, Jim. And I'll hand the controls over to you in just a minute here. I've got just a few slides here about 7Signal. I see a lot of new names on the webinar today, so I'll go through a little background of who we are and what we do, and then Jim will go into the reason why you guys are all here today, so you can talk about devices and connectivity. So about 7Signal, we were established in 2007 in Finland by some Nokia engineers, moved to the US in 2010, just 3 years after, and we've hit some major milestones along the way. We monitor over 5 million devices on a daily basis and crunch a lot of numbers, over 1 billion data points that we analyze daily, so we can make sure that our users get to the root cause of issues quickly. We've been at this a long time. We've got a great technology stack, over 200 customers, so we see a lot of different networks. We work with a lot of different vendors. We've got partners around the world. We care about privacy. So for those of you who are logging in from the EU, we are GDPR compliant. So not only do we keep our technology stack relevant, we make sure that we're secure and the data is secure, and we keep information private. Our hardware is certified in over 40 countries around the world. We've got some good traction, the Fortune 500, and 13 patents. What you see from 7Signal, you're only going to see from 7Signal. So we make sure that's part of the presentations, that there is some uniqueness to what we do, or a lot of uniqueness to what we do. And we're here to enable the wireless world. That goes from education to healthcare to manufacturing, retail, and everything in between. We find and fix Wi-Fi issues. That's what we do. That's what our software does. And what we're doing is we're looking for detailed information about the network. We've created an outside-in enterprise framework that's completely AP and device agnostic, completely modular, so dependent on your needs. If you've seen one wireless network, you've seen one wireless network. All the environments are different, all the challenges are different, and we make sure we tailor our solutions for your environment. And then we do have services that go along with that as well. All of our products are replete with reporting and analytics, alerting tools, so you can be proactive with the network. And what we're doing is we're looking for the top 7 Wi-Fi problems. Everything in the world of Wi-Fi bubbles up to one of these 7 problems that we're monitoring: congestion, coverage, interference, network services, roaming, adapters and drivers, and wireless LAN configuration. What we're doing is we're running active and passive tests on the devices and in the air, monitoring the Wi-Fi for throughput, packet loss, latency and jitter, etc., giving a full spectrum analysis so you can see what's going on in the air, and what types of interference are going on, Bluetooth and Zigbee. There's so much that goes into the wireless network that you cannot see, not only on the device itself, but also with the wireless LAN. So it's important that you understand the difference between 7Signal's outside in and what we call the legacy approach, or that vendor dependency, and that you do get good information from your access point providers, from your device providers. You can see top talkers, you can see app performance. We're not in that space. We give our users visibility into the end user experience with Wi-Fi. Is that device connected? Is it performing properly from a wireless perspective? Is it roaming properly? And Jim will talk about those things. We live on the edge of the network, on the last hop, on the device, in the air with the access points, giving engineers exactly what they need to find and fix issues, getting to the root cause of poorly performing devices. If the challenge is wired, wireless, or device related, we can see that quickly and easily. There's no more being unable to replicate the problem when there's a help desk call. Hey, I had an issue last Wednesday with Wi-Fi. Oh, really? Okay, I can see your device and I can see the Wi-Fi at that given time, and you get right to that issue when it happened, regardless of when you picked up the phone and called someone or not. You can go back in time and look and see when that issue was. Really invaluable information that are giving engineers actionable information to fix Wi-Fi issues. Really, really powerful stuff. we've got two modules that are part of the 7-Signal platform. The first is Mobileye on the left-hand side there. That is an application that runs on the device itself. Any Windows, Mac, or Android device, 100% software base. And you'll recognize these issues, these problems that we talked about earlier. These are the problems that Mobileye finds: adapter and driver combinations, roaming issues, as you would expect. And for those of you who don't know what roaming is, we'll talk about that in a minute. Adjacent and co-channel interference, coverage, and congestion. On the right-hand side of the screen is our Sapphire Eye. That is a perfect client or sensor that lives up in the rafters with the access points, that's monitoring the air, giving a full spectrum analysis. It's a hardware and software subscription that monitors these problems: network services, wireless LAN configuration, radio frequency and co-channel interference, coverage, and congestion. So the difference between the two products, as you would expect, Mobileye is more device-centric, Sapphire Eye is more network and services-centric. Two completely different products, both great feature sets. We've got customers that have both. We've got customers that have one versus the other. And again, it all depends on the network itself. So with that said, let's get into why you all are here. Jim, let's talk about device connectivity and roaming.
Perfect, sounds good. And let's jump right in. There we go. Oh.
Going the wrong way? I can advance for you if you need me to. Oh, what happened
That's
there?
not advancing on my clicks.
Here, let's do this.
There we go. Right. Okay. So today we're talking about connectivity and roaming, and there's a lot of there's a lot of issues around that in Wi-Fi, and one of the big drivers and problem areas is IoT devices. So we're seeing a big flood of these into the enterprise. If you're in manufacturing, you're kind of like, yeah, we've been dealing with that for years. And same with healthcare, with all the medical IoT that's out there. Keeping those devices connected and mobile is quite a challenge, and they're sort of amplifying the challenge there.
Looks like it's jumping backwards for you. I'll advance for you.
Yeah, every time I click, I go backwards. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Don. So let's talk about the problem. So Wi-Fi roaming it's kind of hard with the tools that we have now. And if you've got experience as a wireless engineer, especially dealing with mobile clients, you've probably encountered many that roam poorly. And unfortunately, that's more common than it should be. And so we talked about IoT devices being a driver of that, but also consumer grade devices are a driver of that as well. And in the enterprise, we're seeing a big influx over the last few years of devices that were designed for a consumer environment or an IoT device that was built as cheaply as possible. And usually enterprise mobility and roaming performance is not prioritized for those devices, and they're more and more entering the enterprise. Often, we hear from our customers that we just bought these and now I have to figure out how to make them work. So they're oftentimes they're not evaluated to see how well they'll work. They're just sort of assumed that we've got a Wi-Fi device here, we've got a Wi-Fi network, everything should just work. And with roaming in particular, that's often not the case. Another problem is the visibility issue. It's really hard to know if a client's roaming well or not, especially if you only have infrastructure visibility with the tools that come built in to enterprise WLANs. And even though roaming is mostly a client-side problem, it's clients that decide when they roam from AP to AP, not the APs themselves. It's still considered a Wi-Fi problem, and it gets blamed on the infrastructure. And it affects your professional reputation, because bad roaming is just a bad Wi-Fi experience, and that is a problem that the network team owns, whether they want to or not. So let's advance, please. And so let's talk a little bit about how Wi-Fi roaming works. And in the ideal situation, as a client device moves through the physical space in the enterprise, it's getting closer to other APs. It's got better signal strength there. Don, you got a fire drill going on over there?
I think someone's building something in the floor above us. I'll mute myself.
Excellent. Yeah, good timing.
I gotcha.
And so as this client moves, it's forming new associations. It gets further away from the first AP and the signal strength drops. No problem. I'll just join this next AP. I'll do it really fast. My signal strength won't drop too low, and everything's fine. The end user, it's invisible to the end user. Application performance is maintained. There's very little packet loss. It just works the way it should work, right? In the ideal situation, it's invisible, it works. Nobody even thinks about it. And you don't want your end users to think about it. You want them to think about whatever business they're involved in, whether it's healthcare environments with WOWs and smartphone, Android devices, things like that, coming through the enterprise. They should just roam and work properly, and those patient care providers, those nurses and doctors, shouldn't have to worry about it. So if we could move on, please. So often, this is what it looks like when a sticky client exhibits bad roaming. So it associates to that first AP, and then as it moves, its signal strength starts to drop. It's closer to this other AP, and then it's even closer to another AP, but it's still connected here. So it's connected to this very distant AP. The signal strength gets very, very low. That means the client's data rate drops significantly. Packet loss starts to build up, and now we're past that threshold where the Wi-Fi performance is so poor that applications start to get disrupted. So the most sensitive application is voice, and for our healthcare customers, they love putting our software on their voice handsets, like their Zebra handsets. We're getting in their app store soon because we're a partner. We have a special partnership with Zebra, so we'll be in their app store in the future. Make it easy to deploy there. But they need the visibility because they've got these mobile clients and they're always unsure about their roaming, and we can keep an eye on them and discover if there are clients like this one that are roaming so poorly. What happens, we call this a sticky client because it's just sticking to this first AP. Eventually, it'll get so far away that it can't even maintain its association, and then it'll just kind of restart its network stack and totally reconnect to the network and ideally join a nearby AP. But in the meantime, the end user has had really poor application performance because of the client's bad roaming decisions. And that's a key thing to remember here. The decision for the client to roam from one AP to the next is made by the client itself. So you've done your site surveys, you've done a proper design, you've got neg 65 dBm signal strength everywhere, and yet you still have these clients that have RSSIs in the neg 80s or whatever. It's because they're roaming poorly, right? It's the classic situation you hear or you observe where it's like, well, I'm holding this handset right under this AP, but it's connected to one way down the hall still. That's a sticky client, and that's what you need visibility into to help fix. So those roaming algorithms on clients, there's a lot of diversity there, right? There's no standardized roaming algorithm that you'll find in the 802.11 standard. And roaming isn't tested by the Wi-Fi Alliance. So even those Wi-Fi certified devices that we buy, it's still, a big question mark as to their roaming performance. And because of, kind of the race to the bottom with IoT device pricing and consumer devices that aren't really designed for enterprise mobility, roaming is the problem that we discussed earlier. So let's go on to the next slide. And so, what can we do to help out? Well, so, the problem here is it's a major problem, and there's very little visibility you can get from the infrastructure side, from that AP side to tell if a client is roaming well enough. That's where Mobileye comes in. This is the software agent that runs directly on those clients, and we specifically track data around roaming. We will show you what our, the client's RSSI is, not what the AP hears, but what the client itself hears, which is so critical, and what the RSSI of neighboring APs to that client is as well. We're vendor neutral. I mentioned that we're getting in the App Store with Zebra, but we're going down that path with other vendors as well. We're just trying to make our solution more available to people. We support Windows, macOS, Android. We just sunsetted our iOS client because they don't give us good data, and they give us even less data. But Windows, macOS, and Android support is there, and it's very easy to deploy en masse as well. So let's go on to the next slide, and I think we're going to go right into a demo. So let me make myself presenter. And got the old interface here, so let's switch over here. Okay, so this is the Mobileye dashboard. This runs in the cloud, and this is where you get to see, your IT team gets to see all the data from the clients that have Mobileye running on them. The agent itself is a background service that doesn't have any UI. It's just silently collecting data and uploading it for the network team or device team to use for their troubleshooting. So here's the look at a single machine. This is James' PC, right? And if we, thought of this as like a mobile cart or a workstation on wheels in a hospital, one of the things that we'd be most concerned about is roaming, because that is a device that's getting used while it's in motion between patient rooms down the hall. Nurses are entering data. They've got a Citrix session or VMware Horizon session up and running that they want to keep, that needs a certain level of network performance while it's going on. So we're very, very curious about the roaming performance of it. And right away, you can see, we've tried to make this as simple as possible by just showing you, here are the Wi-Fi problems that we can discover with the data we were collecting. So here's a machine that's had 6 roaming problems in the last week. And if I drill into these, it's very, very simple to understand. So the signal strength that this PC had dropped to minus 77 dBm. Which isn't very good. I wouldn't want to hang out there very long. And at the same time, there was another AP near this client with a signal strength 22 dBm stronger. So huge difference in signal strength there. And if this was a WOW that was in active use, this would cause a problem because it roamed too late. It let its signal strength drop too far. So we can track that and discover that without having to go out there and try and recreate it, try and find the WOW that was affected, try and, make it happen again, bothering the nurses. What WOW were you on? Oh, I don't know, whichever one I, grabbed out of the hole. That's a difficult way to troubleshoot things, and this makes it so much easier. And it tells you historically when problems occurred, what the nature of those problems were. So Wi-Fi is so dynamic, we need to be able to constantly have that historical source of data that we can go back and see what was going on at the time a problem was reported. Well, this is great. We can use this BSS ID. We also capture AP names if the AP is advertising its AP name, which can help us localize where this occurred. And we can just browse through these different roaming problems to see the severity and the time they occurred and things like that. So very, very handy. We also look at, coverage problems. Using the RSSI of the endpoints your end users are actually using can be a great way just to validate that your design is great, is good. So there's usually a delta between the radio sensitivity of something like an Echo Sidekick and an Apple iPhone or a Zebra handset or a Intel adapter. There's differences in radio sensitivity, and they won't always have the same RSSI values in the same places. We can validate that, yeah, from the client's perspective, we don't have any coverage issues. Congestion issues we can discover, which is really handy, right? So we can see if we're not able to achieve the throughput that we wanted to. So that's really cool too, along with the channel utilization and client count on these APs, just from the agent running on the machine. So very handy there. Co-channel interference we can detect. So as RRM or another algorithm is changing your channel plan, or neighbors are standing up new APs, we can keep an eye on that. So, it is a client-focused troubleshooting tool, but we've got good visibility into the infrastructure from here as well. And if we wanted to go a little bit deeper into troubleshooting these roaming problems, we've got all the data here that we can browse through and see, what was the signal strength, what was the data rate that they were using when a problem occurred, what are the APs they roamed from, and down here, this is really valuable. This will show our minimum signal strength along with the signal strength of APs that were nearby at the time. So I could zoom in here to get a little bit more visibility there and see what's our minimum signal strength from the AP we're connected to, and then what's the signal strength of our loudest neighboring APs at the time. So I can go through and kind of make my own determinations if I need to. So we're collecting a lot of good data here. The next thing to look at when we have a device like this that's experiencing some roaming issues is what's the adapter, what's the driver it's got, and because we've got an agent running on the machine itself, we can show that to you. So not just, yeah, this is the Intel OUI and the MAC address, so it's probably got an Intel adapter. Nope, we can tell you exactly that it's got an Intel 8260 802.11ac adapter, and the driver version it's running, in this case, is very, very old and has some pretty significant flaws in its roaming algorithm. This adapter, when it first came out, was notoriously sticky, and Intel fixed that with successive driver updates. So we've discovered a roaming problem with this machine that in longer time spans, we can see when those events occurred, and we probably found the source of the issue right there. So that's just looking at a single machine sort of reactively. We can get pretty proactive in our troubleshooting as well. So we have a couple different ways of looking at that. One is our platforms report. And this is a really nice visualization that shows us the entire client population. And we've got these in this sunburst, we've got these rings, and each ring shows something, some level of detail about the devices. So the center, we've got platform, then we go out to manufacturer, and then we've got the model number, the adapter, and then the driver version. So for instance, here we have an adapter that has two different driver versions, and we can see if there are differences in performance visually here. And if we need to drill into one, we can click on it and see who is what machine has that and what are the problems they've experienced. Additionally, we have a really nice client adapters roaming problems report. We just overhauled this a few weeks ago in our January release to make it a little bit more usable. And what it shows us, let's go out to 30 days, is it shows us all the adapter and driver combinations in our environment. So we can see, for instance, here's an 8260, 8265. There are 23 of these Realtek adapters. And then we can drill in and see who are the clients that have these. So I could click here and see all the machines that have these particular adapter drivers. And if I had one, for instance, that, here's one, this is the one that we were looking at earlier, that I needed to generate a list from, I could just come in here. And actually now I can click here and download a CSV. So if I need to send a list to my desktop support team of machines with a certain driver version that needs to get patched, I can click the CSV button and get that list and do whatever I want with it before I send it off. But very handy. I could also download that and sort of do my own analysis on it if I wanted to as well. So very, very handy there. But using these proactive reports, we can discover issues that end users are just tolerating. They're not calling the help desk. Maybe they're a nurse and doctor, and they've got more important things to worry about, right? They've got patient care to worry about, and if the machine just barely works, they might just put up with it for the time being because they've got better things to do than spend their time calling the help desk. But this way, we can root out those bad apples that are having poor roaming performance and get them addressed without end users having to be a part of that chain. So very, 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 very powerful tool there. And just one last thing to mention, we talked about roaming just being one of the problems that we can troubleshoot. We have this whole slew of end-to-end tests that we run as well. And of course, the other Wi-Fi problems that we troubleshoot as well, that we get good data on, can be really helpful as well, depending on the nature of the problem. So it's a lot of visibility, it's historical visibility, and it kind of, brings you some certainty rather than having to make educated guesses about, what went wrong when a device Wi-Fi problem occurred. Cool. So with that, Don, let's proceed to the Q&A.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jim. Great work. We got a ton of activity in the Q&A panel. For those of you who haven't used GoToWebinar before, there's a little section called questions. If you expand that drop down, you'll be able to ask me a question, me and Jim a question privately, so the rest of the group won't see it. So you don't have to be shy or embarrassed. So the first question was around deployment. Can you explain the deployment process for Mobileye?
Yeah, so it depends on the platform, but with Windows, you can push it out with SCCM and do a silent install and have it configured automatically and up and running very easily. With Android, you can deploy it with an MDM solution like AirWatch or anything else. That can also be a zero-touch configuration and deployment. And with macOS, you can deploy it with an MDM solution as well, like Jamf or there's a lot, but we haven't encountered one that we haven't gotten to work yet. So very easy to deploy with your normal enterprise tools.
Okay, thank you. Is Linux available, or is it on your roadmap?
Good question. Yeah, we are building that now, and it is on the roadmap. There's some momentum behind getting thin clients out in healthcare in particular, and so we're developing a Linux agent with that in mind to support those devices.
All right. Another question specific to MSPs. It says, can Mobileye be used by MSPs multi-tenant scenarios where they manage multiple customers' wireless networks? And is there a separate install for each customer?
Yeah, good question. So it's separate install for each customer today, but we certainly have that use case in mind and have roadmap features that would make it a little bit more MSP friendly, particularly when you've got multi-tenancy to deal with. So stay tuned on that one.
You may have answered this question already, but I'll ask it anyway. Can you explain sticky factor?
Sure. Yeah. So sticky factor is our own proprietary metric, and it's only got three values: a 0, 1, or a 2. A 0 means there's no stickiness. The client's on the best AP it can be connected to, and there's nothing to be concerned about. A 1 is sort of a borderline situation where we might throw up a warning and say, yeah, your signal strength isn't great and there is another AP, but we're not totally sure that this is affecting application performance yet. And then 2 is a critical situation where the signal strength is really poor and there's much better roaming candidates available. So that's what that is.
Thank you. Do you recommend third-party wireless client badges for mobile terminals, WOWs, CALs, to be Ethernet connected, and the WCB handles the Wi-Fi roaming in a much better fashion?
Okay, so this is in Cisco land, we'd call that a workgroup bridge. I'm kind of a keep it simple guy, so if I would prefer to avoid that, because now you have to figure out how to power that device, how to manage that device, how to update its software and its configuration. But there are situations, particularly in healthcare, where you've got something that's got a really poor wireless adapter, or maybe the solution was designed this way, just has Ethernet and they want it to be mobile, where workgroup bridge is a good solution. But personally, I try to avoid it if I can.
A question here around says, you mentioned proactive analytics. So 7Signal customers deploy enterprise-wide Mobileye on-premise?
Yep, it's deployed on premises directly to your endpoints, and we usually have our customers usually deploy it to all their most important machines, or all the machines in the enterprise, just so they have the visibility wherever they may need it in the future.
Question here about Sapphire Eye. Can Sapphire also be used for wired service assurance sensor functions?
Oh, good question. It absolutely can. It's got an Ethernet connection, and we can run a big battery of active tests on that Ethernet port, which is really useful if we want to compare those test results to our Wi-Fi test results to distinguish between network, route switch network side problems and Wi-Fi problems.
So this next question, you'll have to figure out a way to answer it quickly, but is roaming the only function that client devices can have a problem with? It's a long answer to that one, but
yeah, unfortunately, no. And if we had a 4-hour webinar, I could detail all of them in depth. But client devices can have buggy drivers that cause connectivity issues. They can have security problems that affect the 802.1x supplicant. Stickiness issues, of course. Maybe their radio is really insensitive and they can't achieve the data rates they need. So there's a whole host of client-side issues that can be performance impacting as well. and Mobileye can help detect those too.
All righty. Great questions, gang. Keep them coming. These are great. Okay, another question here. Any pushback because of battery drain or privacy issues is the first part. And then, can you see AP max when client roams on an AP outside of your network?
Yeah. So so the resource usage on the endpoint from our agent is really low. It's really lightweight, and we've never been able to detect a measurable impact on battery drain. So that's good, and we encourage our customers to do a trial and make sure that that's what they see as well. But it's never been a problem. Privacy issues, yeah. So that kind of tails into the second part. Can we see AP Max outside of the enterprise network? And we can. Now you can disable that if you want and limit Mobileye to only collecting data from your corporate or internal SSIDs. And that's what people do when they have that concern. But if you have a very mobile workforce that's at Starbucks, they're all over the place in different offices, then maybe they are going to keep Mobileye running. So it's a choice you can make.
All right. Here's a specific question with Mobile Iron. Mobile Iron is our MDM solution with Cisco WLC and Cisco APs. Will Mobileye work with it?
Yes, I think we have customers using Mobile Iron today.
Awesome. And he's also curious if there is a free trial, and that's the only question on this entire list that I can answer. That answer is yes. If any of you have any questions about a trial, please email me. Again, this is Don Cook. You've gotten emails from me. Just reply to any of my emails, and I'll get you into the right hands, and happy to get you a free trial of Mobileye. Let's see. Next question, is the iOS client going to be replaced?
Nope, we've simply end of lifed it, and Apple's gone in a direction of limiting more and more the data that apps have access to. So we for now we don't have much hope that we're going to have an iOS agent again.
Mm-hmm. Does the BSS ID show up versus MAC address?
So right, we do learn the BSS ID of the AP's AP SSID that we're connected to. So yes, and so I'm not exactly sure I'll just expand a little bit. We learn the MAC address of the endpoint that we're connected to. So if you want to search for a device by MAC, you can find that as well. And we also collect those BSS IDs of the APs we're connected to as well.
All right, and I think I'll wrap it up with this last question. Is there multi-site support, company one, company two, control from one place?
Yeah, so that's sort of that multi-tenancy question, and we have roadmap features for that, so you can just switch between different orgs with one account. But we also do use location as a way to distinguish between groups of clients. So if you have a big client population within a single organization, just by using their physical location, which is going to hopefully be different for each of those companies, you can run reports on just those company machines using that feature.
Awesome. And you know what, there's one question here that's quick and that I can actually answer. Do you have training sessions on the dashboard? The short answer is yes, absolutely. Part of our subscription is an onboarding process and ongoing training and support. So you never have to worry about not being able to access anything or understand what's going on in the dashboard. And that goes for non-wireless engineers too, right, Jim? I mean, we've trained folks outside of the Wi-Fi group, you know, the support teams, the device teams, so everybody is on the same page and understands what what to look for with these devices.
Yep, that's right.
Oh, gang, thank you very much for coming today. If any of you would like a recording of today's webinar, I'd be happy to share that with you. For those of you who would like to see an in-depth product tour, both Sapphire Eye and Mobileye, you can go to go.sevensignal.com/tour. We have a live tour every Friday at noon Eastern. So you can register for that there. There's no marketing pitches from me. There's no sales pitches. It's just heavy duty product and Q&A. So feel free to join that. Don't forget the go in front of that sevensignal.com to get you to the right place. Any questions, feel free to email me. Jim, thank you very much again for today. Great job, and everyone have a great rest of the day. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Don. Have a good rest of your day, guys.